Over the last couple of weeks, we've been in communication with this guy, Mark French, who is both a photographer and he's retired, but he's taken on the challenge of traveling to each of the 48 contiguous states by vehicle, and he's got this thing set up and converted, and he's going to take us on a little bit of a tour.
Start with the back. Obviously, it's a little bit of a mess. I can remove a chair and whatnot, but on the top, I don't know if you saw that, there is a solar panel. It's a 400 watt solar panel that feeds a power station behind my passenger seat, which provides me ample power to run my fridge and a full coffee pot, as well as to charge up all of my electronics as I needed.
Coffee is incredibly important, of course.
Coffee is incredible. Right. And not only that, but I have a preferred vendor that sends me care packages to make sure that I always have fresh coffee beans on my ride.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, she's from my home state, and she's actually from my hometown with a new business called Bully Brew. She earned a spot on my back windshield.
I see that one, Bully Brew. Only
and then over here,
except for Bully Brew.
You were saying that these are the states from the east, is that right?
So these states are the ones that I've been to so far east of the Mississippi. I still have a handful left to go that will I'll finish that up sometime in May, June, in that ballpark. It'll be on my last part of the trip. So I have a 5-inch memory foam mattress. It runs the length of my vehicle here. As you can see, the seats are taken out. Mm-hmm. And I have a wooden platform built underneath. You can't really see it from here. That has storage underneath, so I have drawers in there, and I can keep all extra camera gear, clothes, blankets, whatever I might need for the trip. It's designed enough to give me a good night's sleep and feel refreshed, but not so comfortable that I want to stay in it all day. And that was kind of the purpose, is to be able to get out and meet people, and like what you guys are doing, the same type of thing. And it works for me. Got a dual burner, runs on propane, and I take that out when I'm at a park or at campgrounds, and I try to make as much of my own food as possible. A 31-liter fridge or freezer, so I can show you, because it's kind of empty right now. I'm getting ready to, it's ample space. You got my chia seeds in there, which is important for my breakfast blends that I like to do with fruit and the like. One of the things I've learned is minimalization is a key word, and you guys probably know that as well. You want to take your entire kitchen sink and everything and bring it with you, but I found out almost immediately you don't need that. You just need. I have one plate. I got one pan. I do have some spices and whatnot underneath.
How much time have you spent traveling out of this vehicle?
This would be 278 days as of today. 35,800 miles since April 4th.
It's quite the compact package. Like, obviously everything's fit in there very tightly, but I mean, you're living out of here. That's the beauty of it.
I'm living out of here, and I can go into places that a larger RV could not. Got enough clearance. It's not a 4-wheel drive, but I can virtually go anywhere I want to go. And how do I do my trip? I wake up in the morning and look at the weather. If it's bad one direction, I go the other. I don't have any pre-planned idea of where I'm going to end up. And when we're done here today, all I know is I'm heading west. Looking for a campground, a Corps of Engineer campground that, as a senior, I get for half price, so it costs me like $10 a night.
Oh, that's really good.
And that has electrical hookups. So the nice thing is, even without sunshine, if I need power, I can plug it in direct to an adapter and fill up my power station, and I'm good to go with that.
And how many watts of solar did you say you had?
This is 400 watts. It's the type of panel that you would put on top of your house. And that's the unit that it feeds. It's called the Blue Eddy AC 200 Max.
Is this both battery and inverter?
No, it's plug and play. So I have no inverter. It goes direct from my panel to the unit. So I don't have anything. There's nothing attached to my vehicle battery whatsoever. If needed, I could buy a separate storage packet. Obviously, you can see it's pretty crammed in there. Here's an idea of underneath how I use my space. So here's that wooden platform I built. I just used the existing holes that were there when I had the seats taken out, and I went into those as a foundation, but I keep all my extra water, some cooking tools, and way back in there, that's where I have clothes, and obviously I have access underneath the mattress to get to those areas. Yeah. And I get great mileage, which is a fantastic thing. So I'm averaging about 26 miles to the gallon.
Oh, that's great.
It's a V6. It's not brand new. It doesn't need to be. My most important asset in there is that sticker up front. God bless America right under my windshield. And it's an interesting story because I bought that in Ely, Nevada from a lady who moved to Ely, Nevada from Ely, Minnesota and opened a gift store. So I just thought it was so cool. So that's my reminder every day of, you know, God's on this trip with me. And I'm finding out who I am as a person, what I can deal with, how do I deal with challenges, frustrations, whatever it might be, and learning that I'm a very patient man.
You have a lot of time to get to know yourself, that's for sure.
A lot of times, sometimes too much. That's when music comes in and I throw on some music. In the back, on the windows, I have covers that are specifically made for those windows. But I don't put them on the front when I park because I boondock and I'm at a Cracker Barrel or a Walmart parking lot or a rest stop or similar. What I have is two black velvet curtains that go behind the back seat. And the reason it's black velvet is because it absorbs light.
Yeah.
So photographers know that that's what you want for a background. So that's what I have here. So at night you can see on my passenger seat there's a hoodie and it makes it look as though someone's sitting in that vehicle at night, and I can keep these windows clear without any coverings on them, so it makes it look like a parked vehicle. Most times people have no clue that I'm even in here.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Nice.
And I might be in the back just watching a movie.
Yeah.
So for those listening today, I am with Paige and her husband Toren. Did I get that correct?
Yeah.
They are known as the Walk in America couple. And I find their story very intriguing. And when I realized, based on their posts, that our paths were going to be pretty close to each other, I made it a point to reach out to see about meeting you guys in person. And thank you for making this happen. You have no idea what this means to me personally, because what you're doing is something I would have loved to have done 40 some years ago. I'm really interested to hear more about it. So maybe I can just start with a few questions.
Yeah, anything you want to ask.
How'd you guys meet? And how did you know, and which one of you knew first that you would become a couple?
I'll become a couple.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, there wasn't a lot of beating around the bush. We met after I had basically finished doing something much like what you're doing. Some while ago, I had worked for corporations my whole life, wore a tie to work every day, but I was pretty miserable. I mean, I was very cynical, plugged into the wrong filter bubbles and echo chambers, and I decided I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life that way. So I got rid of all of my material possessions, backpacked a few hundred miles through the mountains, and then floating on corporate savings, I bought a van and built it out and converted it and put solar on it and the whole shebang, and then traveled the States for a couple of years. When I had come back to Missouri to do some roofing work for my buddy who owns a commercial roofing company, he had taken me on the road to Jefferson City, where I met Paige, and she was my waitress.
I'll be darned. So you're at a restaurant, I'm assuming?
Yes. Yeah, he was my last customer. Then I came in just before close. He didn't realize, and I almost turned him down. But
yeah. So we bonded over a philosophical discussion pertaining to dietary ethics, and I asked for her number that night, and she turned me down. So I gave her my number instead, and she reached out.
Wow.
I had a previous relationship at the time, but I had a feeling about Toren immediately. I was so intrigued I couldn't not keep talking to him.
She had a current relationship at the time.
Yeah. I don't know if I wrote that
So at some
wrong.
point you did take that phone number and reach out.
Yes, I took his number, reached out a few days later, and after we spent one evening together, I couldn't fight the fact that I had very strong feelings for Toren right away, and it was just a few weeks that I left the other relationship, and a few months later we were officially dating, and a couple months after that we were moving to Colorado together to save up money to live in the van for a little bit.
We were definitely attracted to each other the moment that we met. I mean, mostly because of a shared mindset, right? We're both very much interested in self-development and personal growth and becoming the best version of ourselves that we can be. And you don't find that in a lot of people, not in the way that we share it, where it's the priority of our lives. Until we have like a vacation or something, then we can be kind of debaucherous, but otherwise.
I love that.
Honestly, even aside from the having similar values, as cheesy as it sounds, I was always skeptical when people would say love at first sight, but I had a feeling immediately with Toren. I don't know. Just tell there's something special.
And I understand that love at first sight thing. I call it the like at first sight. See if it develops from there. But oh wow, thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
So Missouri, you pack up the van. Paige comes with you this time. You go to Colorado, spend a couple months just traveling around, living out of a van, getting a taste for it yourself.
So Toren wanted to do something on foot right away, but I wanted the van as a stepping stone, but needed to save up money to travel in the van. So we moved to Colorado and for several months just worked a normal restaurant job. And Toren was the ever-walking artist. He walked around Denver painting while walking and displayed paintings around him on his contraption that he built. And it was several months of saving up money doing that, and then we moved into the van. And we only wound up doing that for a month and a half. Funny enough, we saved up way longer than we spent in the van because we decided to start walking after a month and a half in the van.
And how long ago was this Colorado portion of your journey?
Well, we started the walk May 16th of 22, and we traveled the states in a van for, like she said, about a month and a half before that. Although
Colorado was 2021.
Colorado was 2021.
Because we went home for a few months during the winter, and then we left off in the van early in the year. And then we went home to prepare for the walk. So there's little bits of in between, lot to the timeline.
So it's been a journey basically established since 2021 till the present.
And
in
for
some
my
way,
life,
shape, or form.
Yeah, Toren's adventure started much earlier.
I've been doing stuff like this for about 7 years now. I'm 31, so I took off when I was 24, and I just told myself I was never going to live that way again.
Oh man, you're speaking right to my heart here. And for those who are listening here, you made a comment about we went there and we worked to save up some money. Mm-hmm. So I call that prioritization. Doing what's needed to do to prioritize what you really want to do in life. What would you say to those people listening now about the importance of prioritizing dreams, aspirations, or things that they really want to achieve, but most don't often get to that point? What would you share with people about that aspect of your journey? The beginning, the setting, the template of this is what I want to do, and here's how I'm going to achieve it.
Yeah.
I think our mind works against us most of the time. A lot of the time people, they fantasize about doing something like this, but fear impedes them. And you also get caught up in the story that the right moment hasn't come. Yes. That you're waiting for the universe to align itself in such a way that things fall into place. It doesn't work like that. You have to make it happen. And furthermore, if you don't feel psychologically prepared for it yet, you have to become the person that can be ready for it. sometimes that involves taking the first steps, like because of the extreme nature of the walk. When Paige and I go home and we become acclimated to living in a house, you no longer identify as the person who walks across the country. Like, it feels as though you've plugged into a different consciousness, and you begin to want to seek more control over your environment. We naturally gravitate toward comfort, but you have to jump into it. Every time we go back to do another segment, you have to just dive into the deep end with the faith that you will become that thing after enough time, and it will all become normalized eventually. So it's kind of paradoxical in that sense, but it's also nuanced. You need to work to become good enough to take that jump into the deep end of the pool, and sometimes, depending on the deep end that you're jumping into, you need to just have the faith that you're going to be able to swim once you get in there.
Yeah. Don't wait. Don't wait to feel ready. We almost never do. We're all stronger than we think and more malleable than we think. We'll acclimate when the time comes.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know I've had some similar, that if I waited for everything to fall into place perfectly, I'd still be sitting at home.
Right,
Yep.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's part of it, and I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing, is you just learn it as you go.
Yep.
You discover as you go, and you adapt as you go, regardless of what it is, health, financial, whatever it might be that would show up in your journey, you deal with it. Right?
I like to regularly, especially previously before I had actually hopped into the journey, to learn about those people that have done something more extreme than even the thing that you're looking at, and you can saturate your mind with these other stories, and it no longer seems like that big of a deal.
So, as a couple, has this journey brought you even closer together as a couple, more reliant on each other? What are some of the positive attributes that have come about for you as a couple since the journey began?
It definitely brought us closer. We started dating, and then after our first 6 dates in 6 months, we went home, and Toren proposed on Christmas, and we got married in February, and resumed our walk after that. It teaches you a lot about how your partner will react in difficult circumstances, how you can get through those without taking it out on each other. Is this person going to help me through this or beat me down more? Or are we just going to bounce off each other negatively? And we've learned to try and lift each other up and be each other's rock.
Company you keep makes an enormous impact on an experience like this, more so than many others, because it's you have the wrong chatterbox next to you, and it can really drag you down.
Yeah. So you have each other building each other up.
Yeah.
With positivity.
And of course, we're not perfect. We're always taking turns being the more negative one, and
and I have to do that myself.
Yeah.
Am I going to be on my own worst enemy today? Type of thing. But I've developed some strategies for when I am feeling negative or frustrated or whatever to deal with stuff. You're on this journey. You're walking. How many miles a day do you walk on average? How do you decide which direction you're heading or not heading? Are there places you stay away from? Are you open to virtually anywhere in the country? What does your day look like? And when maybe starting from when you wake up in the morning.
From the moment that we wake up in the morning, we probably chug about a pot of coffee each, and while we work social media and respond to all of the things that have happened while we were asleep. Social media consumes a lot of our time. It's kind of the nature of the beast, but we're happy for it in that it allows us to impact a lot of people in a positive way. But from the moment that we wake up, usually until the moment that we go to sleep, with the exception of moments like this, or when someone has us to dinner and they're hosting us, or we're sleeping at their house, we're working on writing and creating content. I write a lot of the content on our page, and we're conjuring up ideas for videos and stuff like that. So we'll spend a couple of hours in the morning doing that. I would say average, we wake up at like 7 and leave between 9 and 10. and then we will walk for the next 6 to 8 hours, depending on how much daylight we have. And we normally try to make it to the next town if we're in a really densely populated area like Arkansas and Louisiana. Although I can't say that that's been playing out super well these last few days. We've been stopped by a lot of people on the road.
We had 2 news interviews this morning on the side of the road, basically at the same time.
So we're not making very good progress right here, but in other areas you can make really good time. Like Montana, we averaged about 15 miles a day. Tennessee, we actually averaged 17, 18 miles a day, and it's really context dependent. Toward the end of the day, often our host will pick us up off our route and we'll share a meal with them and then shower up for the night and retire and go to sleep and then do it all over again. With regard to the route, though, that all gets designed prior to the segment. So Paige spent about a 40-hour work week making this route, this like 600-mile route that we're doing currently through Arkansas and Louisiana, because earlier in the journey, we were flying a lot more by the seat of our pants, but the problem is, as beautifully romantic as it is, we've almost died so many times because of it, because of the traffic. You get sandwiched up against a concrete barrier or the wrong guardrail, and there's no shoulder, and you're in like a 4-lane highway, and there might not be any other way around it, right? You have to walk 3 weeks out of your way to get around this one spot that lasts 5 miles in the road. We're becoming increasingly cautious about not hitting those spots anymore.
Yeah, our dollies have to be on pavement, so.
Yeah, because you're each pushing a cart, right? And you have a dog, Jack, on there as well. So, my thoughts always went to, I wonder if Jack ever just jumps off.
Too often.
Not into the road, but he wants to walk. He jumps into the grass usually.
You mean he doesn't like being lazy and just sitting on the cart?
He won't even lay down so much of the time.
Oh, you darn. That is so cool.
Ambitious.
What has been probably the closest you've been to being hurt or in a moment of danger from being on the wood, whether it's vehicular or perhaps nature, animals, things of that nature?
Vehicles and dogs have been our closest threats for sure. There's some states that are much worse than others. Some of the southern states, Tennessee and Alabama, might have been the worst with having strays or just dogs that aren't restrained, and they might be in the middle of nowhere, so they roam the property. They don't expect to have any problems, and we're the only people that have ever walked down that road probably, but we've been chased by packs of angry dogs that want to kill our dog. I think it's a male on male thing. They're likely to go for Jack quite often, so that's been a huge impediment. And regularly, traffic is our main concern. We've had countless close calls, inches, a lot of people just not paying attention. A lot of the times, it's not that the road is so dangerous, it's the people choosing to be distracted in one way or another.
We wave at everybody on the road, trying to spread the kindness. And about 30% of people wave back with their phone in their hand because they've been texting and driving. And they do it like instinctually, not thinking about what they're indicating.
Interesting that you bring that up, because I notice that often. Part of my training with Cargill was how do you spot someone who's on their phone texting when they're out driving. And if you start noticing vehicles that are speeding up and then slowing down and then speeding up and slowing down, a very good indicator. I see so many. And it's one of my rules that I never text while I'm driving, ever.
Yeah.
You might try to reach out to me. I figure I'll wait until I can pull over before I respond to it. I have a hard time even just reaching over to change a Spotify channel when I'm going. So just a suggestion, and maybe you already have some of these, I don't know, but I have what's called the Ray-Ban Meta Glasses. I don't know if you're familiar with them. You can take videos with them and photographs. You can listen to your music with them, but also you can answer phone calls and you never have to touch your phone in doing so. And where it came to mind for you guys is I could see some scenarios in congested traffic, heavy traffic. You just turn the video on and they go for 3 minutes a shot, and that way you have a recording of what you're seeing. You can even do an interview like this with your glasses, so the phone's not in front of someone's face. Or
Yeah.
I just figured I'd bring that up. I can show them to you later.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I've seen them in videos, but I've
Yeah.
not gotten my hands on it.
I know a big part of your journey is raising donations as you go. And how's that been for you? And what kind of feedback do you get? Obviously, you're getting feedback positively when you start seeing money coming in. But have you heard any negative to how you're going about your journey?
Oh, sure. We have people regularly. Oh, you're just beggars. Oh, you're just bums. Content creation is a job, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's not even a bizarre thing that we're doing. Patreon, super thanks options, different ways to buy merchandise from people. These are all means of people supporting their content creators that they like. Except
Yeah.
we just don't paywall any of our content. Patreon, you create a paywall so that people can get special information, and we don't want to do that because
We're trying to impact as many people as we can. We don't want anyone to have to pay for it.
yeah, it's also an example of altruistic faith. We don't have to engage with each other in this tit for tat way. We can put faith in one another. And we walked out here when we started the journey, we only had $200 with the faith that it would work out. And we're not becoming rich, that's for sure,
Yeah.
but it's enough to keep us going. It's enough to get us through deserts. Like, we make enough in the population dense areas to save up to go do. We'll probably do, not committing to it yet. We'll probably do Nevada and Idaho at the end of this segment. We'll go home, recoup, and trade out some gear and stuff like that. But Nevada will be lots of nothing, and there will be almost no donations coming in while we're in Nevada.
Sure.
Yeah.
I will just share this. So I've done Nevada already.
Yeah.
It was the state that probably blew my mind the most.
Really?
So, we talk about perceptions. Nevada, to me, I'd never been there. Well, I shouldn't say that. I drove through there on the way to California once. But Vegas and Reno, I thought about vice. I thought about debauchery, the negatives, all that. I get there. I've been to both of those cities. I was surprised by how clean they were. I'm magnificently clean. There wasn't anything on, and everybody I met was really kind, which kind of blew my mind because it changed my perception of what I thought I was going to run into. But it was the center of the state that absolutely blew me away. We talk about a state that there's nothing there. I did the whole circle, the loop in the center, Ely, Elko, Winnemucca, some of these towns. It's desert, but it's surrounded by mountains, and it's absolutely stunning. So I would challenge you to look at some of those areas, and they will tell you, like in Ely, I said, oh my gosh, you have a gold mine here. This, don't tell anybody because we like it this way. We don't want it to be the tourist trap, so to speak. But you get a chance, oh my gosh. A lot of people think of the desert like I had. There's nothing there. It's dry, it's sage, it's whatever, rust color. If you look closely and spend some time, and especially if you're walking, you'll start to notice all the different flowers. You'll start to notice all the different types of plants, the different types of cactus. And then you'll start to see the animals, and various things like that. It just becomes a beautiful state, or it became a beautiful state for me. So, yeah, I would encourage if you go there to try some of that central part. I'd be curious to see if you see it the way I saw it.
We're very restricted on the roads that we can use. We've already looked at mapping it out, and it looks like 93 is about our only route through to do what we're doing and line ourselves up appropriately with Idaho.
Sure.
Yeah. But I actually toured Nevada in the van for quite some time, and I got up in the mountains of Nevada while they were snow-capped, and it was absolutely beautiful. There's this area, I think it's called Indian Springs Prison, but there's this little road that nobody knows about that you can get up to some BLM land, and there are like a couple of places just outside of Vegas where if you needed to, you could commute to Vegas, and that's where I was spending a good chunk of time in the van, and then eventually actually moved to Vegas for about 6 months. right next to the Hard Rock Hotel before they took it down.
Okay. So that community in Vegas, Pahrump.
Huh?
Did you go to the community of Pahrump?
Mm-mm.
A lot of nomaders. That's a very popular place. I, like you, pulled over there for 3-4 days up into the mountains. That's
Yeah.
the nice thing about solars, because I have what I need, up there from an electrical standpoint. So we're back on the journey again. You're out in the middle of nowhere. And I know this because I saw it on a couple of your videos. Nature calls. And I think it's, but it's something that folks need to be aware of who are entertaining the idea of doing something similar to what you're doing. It's a little different for me because I can drive to a rest area or whatnot, but on the road, talk about that a little bit. I distinctly remember the one where you found off the road a culvert behind some shrubbery and whatnot, and I thought, yeah, that's
You start looking at everything through different eyes when you got to go to the bathroom. Trees take on new meaning. Bushes take on new meaning. These little like slumps on the side of the road look like, oh, that might be a tunnel over there, and you just always have an eye out for it.
There's specific markers that no one would know means that there's a tunnel there until you figure it out and connect the dots. I think it probably is different in different states, but I remember specifically in the Dakotas they had it's like a little metal pole with a skinny little yellow top on it, or maybe a white top, and it's marking the sides in case someone was to drive off the road. And so it's like we'll see it a quarter mile ahead. That's my bathroom stop right there.
So ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's different everywhere.
And obviously, most of the time you're being hosted.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say most nights out of a week that you're being hosted versus having to set up a tent or anything?
In populated states.
Popular. Okay.
In Arkansas and Louisiana, we've been hosted all but the first night in Arkansas, we camped before anyone knew who we were.
And this is great for us because we can't really walk to a campsite. There aren't a lot of campsites out here in the first place. And
public lands.
Yeah, so we try to secure hosting. We don't want to be where we're not supposed to be. But in other areas, like we did Wyoming and Montana this summer, and in Montana we did a 125-mile stretch and a 95-mile stretch without civilization. So we put in 465 miles, meaning nearly half of it was desolate. And we were packing, it would have been about 150 pounds of water to get through the longest stretches. And you're rationing it, and you're rationing your food, and you're sleeping under the road, and you go a week without showering. It's just the walk is a totally different animal depending on the state you're in.
Yeah.
We had to ship ourselves food. We would cook Jack homemade food and then dehydrate it and vacuum seal it, and then his dad would ship it to a USPS, and we'd have to align it just right to pick it up as long as they would hold it.
So you understand that things could still be, and I'm sharing this for the viewers, you can still get stuff even when you're on the road.
Yes.
General delivery, mail, whatever it might be.
But you got to call ahead of time because not all post offices have the same policies.
And that's a great point because I'd given my coffee vendor a location and the post office wouldn't accept them.
Mm-hmm.
You learn real quick that. Okay. Yeah, let me see here. I mean, there's 1,000 things going through my mind. So you've had some challenges. How about physically? What's it doing to you physically? Obviously, I'm assuming that your legs get to be quite strong over time. What about arms and the rest of it? Are you doing exercises? Speak to that a little bit.
We are trying to work out at the end of most nights to try and keep a little muscle everywhere but our legs. We don't do extra leg workouts. We hurt a lot of the time. Our feet and legs are often in pain, especially the feet. There's some areas of the legs that you lose a little bit of what you gain when you go take a break, but some of it stabilizes. Like I don't really get sore in my thighs. Shins hurt a lot. Feet basically always hurt quite a lot.
Between the two of us, one of us probably has been carrying a repetitive motion injury throughout the duration of the whole walk. It's like I get one, I finally get rid of it, Paige gets one, and we're just, you kind of feel like you're just limping across the country, and it's almost like something that I don't know if there's a way around it. Pack lighter, I suppose, but because of Jack, we can't pack light in the way that other people would. We have extra gear to bring. And
the carts themselves are for Jack.
Yeah, the carts themselves. So like my shoulder has just been getting better since the Dakotas, and that's because the Dakotas have terrible winds. And just incredible winds, and
We're so flat.
yeah, there's nothing to break the wind. And
We have a standing joke, by the way, that you could stand on the eastern side of a state on a clear day and see the western side perfectly clear. It's that flat.
Excuse my yawning. I'm not bored, just missing sleep.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it.
So we had to wrestle our carts like this because the signs on the front of them are very large, and they're sails in the wind, and that screwed my shoulder up, and I carried that into the beginning of this segment. So I had that for like 3-ish months probably. It's finally starting to get better, but it's not all the way yet. And then Paige was just getting over something with the back of her knee. It was all swollen and weird the other night.
Yeah, that was thankfully a really short instance. I iced it for one night and it felt better the next day. But I've had like a problem with my right arch and then the top of my left foot. Totally opposite for some reason. Out of sync.
What I want our viewers to hear about that, about what they just shared, you didn't quit. Many folks, when they start dealing with the ailments or whatever, if you don't have that strength and that fortitude to want to keep going, they say, okay. And I see many using that as an excuse. I can't do this anymore. In reality, what they're doing is they're quitting on themselves. Yeah. And I'm not hearing that with you. You're going through it. You're working yourself through it. I experience a little bit differently because I'm driving. I have a few more comforts, I guess. But I'm also dealing with back injuries. If I'm on my legs too long, my left leg goes to sleep. It goes numb, and the mid back or my low back will get sore. And I could have looked at that. My doctor, before I left, said the worst thing you can do is go on this driving trip that you're planning on doing. And I understand where she's coming from medically, but I said, no, I think the worst thing I could do is take your advice and sit at home in a recliner. I says, because that's not going to do me a damn bit of good. And what I have found, and it's kind of, I think, what you're sharing here a bit, is you work through it. So for me, I challenge myself. I get out and I start walking. The other day when I first showed up in Monroe, I found a little small park walking path, and I knew it was going to hurt, but I knew it was necessary for me to get out and get that exercise to build the core. I paid for it. This morning it was like, oh gosh, but you work through it, and pretty soon you develop some strength that you probably didn't have before. Yeah. So I'm glad you shared that. But more importantly, I think what I want the folks to hear is you didn't quit. Yeah. It's not your stopper. And hopefully that serves as an encouragement to others who are considering doing something similar to what Paige and Toren are doing here. Talk about some of the highlights, as a couple perhaps, and maybe some individual highlights that you've encountered or you've experienced since you've been starting. So, and I know, there's a caveat here, because you're meeting so many people, so many gracious folks, so many people that, to not mention someone does not exclude them from how valuable and important they've been in your life. Right. So with that being said, on the front side, are there some areas that just stand out as, oh my gosh?
There are some really strong highlights. Paige was coming down with something. We didn't know what was going on. We were walking through the San Luis Valley, and this was before we had any social media. So we weren't being hosted. We were sleeping under the road most nights.
San Luis Valley of Colorado, for anyone that doesn't know.
Yeah. And there aren't a lot of resources out that way. So we were we were filtering some water, and she was just about to reach the point of tears when we had finally arrived in Alamosa. We had stopped at a park to go to the bathroom, and this guy, he was having pizza with his son, and he invited me over for a slice while Paige was in the bathroom. And he started talking to me about this self-sustaining community that he was building with his friends and family. And they had 40 off-grid acres, and he ended up inviting us out to go stay there at their Airbnb. Paige comes out of the bathroom, and his family and friends are just arriving. Paige had been asking if anybody had any Tylenol or ibuprofen. One of the friends goes, "Well, I'm a healer. What are your issues?" So they ran off to her house, and then while she was there,
She did some alternative medicine, sort of. I don't know what to call it. She used essential oils, and I don't know what it's called. She did some like crystal stuff, spiritual connection, whatever she was doing. I'm not exactly sure, but with whatever her methods were, she said, "I think you have a UTI," and I actually thought I had one about a week ago, and I got the antibiotics, and I turns out I don't have one, so you could just have it. The bottle's full. I only took one, and she gave that to me, and then we go over to the park, and the man's wife that we were originally talking to said, "I happen to have a UTI test here. You can go take it to make sure that's what it is." And then I go in the bathroom and I take it. That's what it is. I look up the bottle to make sure it's the right stuff, and my solution was just presented to me within like
Wow.
5 minutes. And
the cherry on top is that we ride out to their area, and as we pop over this ridge and their property comes in view, they were home to a miniature donkey and camel farm. They're in the middle of Colorado. So we got to go out and meet the camels, and if you look at our website, you'll see pictures of Paige holding camels and us petting the camels, and
one putting its mouth on my face, and I'm like,
they do this thing. He called it giving you kisses. But whenever they first meet you, they want to push their nose into you, and it's so bizarre because they have that split in the middle of their mouth, but they move independently.
Oh, I did not
And
know
so,
that.
yeah, and so they press into you, and you can feel these. It's like a forked tongue or something rubbing up on you. It's
Oh, how cool is that?
they're very interesting creatures to get to interact with them in that way.
That's
kind of feel
quite
like dinosaurs.
Yeah, that's quite the experience though, with the spiritual healing, if you will. A good friend of mine does some of that too, and I'll be seeing him in New Mexico. So I've already been forewarned by his brother that he's gonna do something with you along those lines.
Yeah,
so I have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea
Wonderful.
what that would
Always
be.
good to try.
How about people wise? Any people that you met along the way? Is there someone or a family or something that just really stood out as, oh my gosh, we've been blessed?
The Mennonite family in Wisconsin, they're always a highlight that we like to point to. We learned so much from them. We walked up Wisconsin into Upper Michigan, and then we walked back south to get to Illinois. So we passed them. We stayed one night, and we were rushing to make sure we were in line with the seasons. And on our way back south, we went a few days out of our way to go see them again because we were doing good. And we stayed, I think, 4 nights so we could attend church with them and integrate with their community a little more. And we spent most of our time with this family of 8 children and the parents. They changed our perspective on a lot of things. Their community system is completely different. The wife would call her friend and ask if she could go get some raw milk off her farm, and she would go over there and she'd offer her more things. Do you need this or that? She'd go like, "Hey, there's no spinach at the grocery store. Can I come pick some?" She'd go to a community member's garden and come back with spinach leaves this big around, which I didn't know existed.
So much of their core is built around self-regulation in order to be the best most godly version of themselves that they could be. And that's why they don't have the influences that we do, why they don't have the TV and the smartphones. They genuinely recognize that as bringing a certain kind of moral corruption to society. And I gotta say, as much as we want our freedom, there are some things that really are better left untouched. It's not all knowledge is good knowledge, and you can know that just from watching the news. There are some things that we just don't need to be plugged into. We don't need to take on the burden of all the world's problems. We don't need to see all the bad things that are out there. And those all work to influence us. Our conversations with the Mennonites were largely wrapped around this and how it relates to the perspective of the world that it shapes and becoming the best version of ourselves that we can. They live at such a different tempo. You can tell that they're in the present more often because their attentions aren't so hijacked by the overstimulation that we have. And they don't have this like egocentric trading of experiences when they're in a conversation. If somebody says that they're going through something or they experienced something, then they just fully explore that conversation right there. They don't feel like they need to just say, "Oh yeah, and then I did this." It's not like that.
No one-upmanship.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Not to say that it doesn't exist.
sure.
Some Mennonites are more that way than others are, and some congregations within the Mennonite community are different than that congregation, but it's still so far removed from what we experience in contemporary society that it's just absolutely eye-opening.
And the children were the healthiest, happiest looking children I've ever met.
Yeah.
They sat quietly around the dinner table and passed the food in a circle, and
Sure.
they played outside all day, and they gardened with the mother or worked with the father, and it was beautiful.
And I can follow along because we have Mennonite communities all around where I'm born and raised. And yeah, it's a whole different lifestyle. But you said something that caught my attention. TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll share this. So I'm in Pennsylvania during the elections. I had no idea the elections were going on. That's how I don't press on anything on my phone that has to do with elections and the like, or TV. I've only watched TV 6 times since I've been started this. But a good friend of mine calls me up and said, "Where you at?" I said, "Pennsylvania." "How long you been there?" He said, "6." "Oh my gosh, you're in the thick of all. What are you talking about?" He says, "It's the elections. It's a swing state, and everything on the TV is everywhere in Pennsylvania is, And I said, "I've been here for 6 days and I've met hundreds of people. I've not heard one thing about politics. I've not seen one thing about politics anywhere." I said, "I don't know what you're watching." And he goes, "It's on every station." And I said, "It's not reality. They're showing you what the electorate or what the politicians or what the news media wants to sell you, and that's it. But I'm telling you right now, over 6 days, hundreds of people. It's the first time it came up, and it's you calling me from out of state." So my perceptions have really changed. Would you say that your perceptions are changing a bit as you're on this journey, whether it be media, things like, with technology? Obviously, we use our phones, and to getting our social media content out and what. But have any perspectives changed for you?
Everybody's afraid of their neighbor, and
That's a huge thing.
Yeah, everybody's afraid of their neighbor. Here in the South, from the moment that we started in Arkansas, the next town or just the next town over past that, "Oh, you don't want to go there. That their crime is so bad. You don't want to walk through that place. Don't want to walk through that place. Don't want to walk through this place." And it's because they're plugged into the news. And you know what? We have experienced nothing but kindness and friendliness throughout the whole, most of the entirety of the United States. After having walked 25 states, there have only been a handful of people that have pulled over on the side of the road to make trouble with us. And it was never like in a genuinely threatening way. It was just, they thought that what we were doing was silly or something like that, and they wanted to let us know. But even many of those situations were diffused, and they left with a different outlook. Part of the issue is that we're really stuck on these labels of good and bad, and labels are applied to every group when you're plugged into the TV. This group's this way, this group's that way. Most people sit in the middle, and the people that don't sit in the middle are still motivated by the same common core that humanity shares. Nobody wants to suffer. Everybody wants to see more love in the world. Everybody wants to see their family flourish. People don't want to see discrimination. The problem is we ourselves and our selfishness gets in the way of fully realizing those things. And so because of our lesser aspects, we don't necessarily fulfill our best qualities potential. But you can bring out the best in people. Paige and I have made friends with police, politicians, clergymen, and genuine criminals, people who have killed other people and people who have robbed other people. We've made friends with everybody. And it's because that's not important to that moment that we're experiencing right there. All that matters in that moment is that moment, and the rest of it is just it's nothing, right? We can love each other and be friends right here, right now. Whatever they've done in their past, that was then, and this is now. And when you bring that to your conversation with someone, and when you wear that on your sleeve, your interactions unfold in an entirely different way.
Yeah, and you're not probably as guarded as you might typically be if
we try to avoid it. I've mentioned to several people when they have tried to tell us this next place that's coming up, you don't want to go there. It's better that I keep my attention off of that, because if something truly bad does manifest in the moment, I have to handle it in that moment. But carrying this warning with me into the place that I'm going is not going to benefit me. It doesn't help with anything. And if we're walking around talking to people about how to live contentedly and be more resilient and pull away from their unhealthy thought patterns, if we're walking anywhere, we should be walking into the less contented places.
I almost started to cry when you were sharing that because it's been my experience as well. We're not nearly as divided a country as our media makes us out to be. I've not yet, in 31 states now, run into anybody who's been rude, unkind, indifferent, angry, whatever towards me. The closest I would come is probably a honk on the horn because I pulled in too early or something on roads that I'm not familiar with. That would be the closest. Everybody I've engaged with has been kind, curious, wanting to know more. And as I'm sure it is with you, I'm building these relationships as I go that I couldn't have fathomed happening when I first started this. But it's the love and the kindness and the generosity of our fellow men and women out there that are making this trip of mine, and I'm sure to you, probably as beautiful as it could be. And absent of being prejudgmental or having preperceptions of what I could or might run into. For me, I don't go to the big cities if I can help it. And it's a traffic thing. I don't really want to deal with all that traffic. Now I'm thinking about you guys. I say, oh, that's a piece of cake for me, but I don't want to deal with it. And with that comes, I'm probably staying away from areas that others would describe to you guys as, you don't want to go there because there's trouble. In the big cities, you might hear, well, that's the ghetto, or that's this or that, or whatever moniker they attach to it. Maybe there is some truth to that. But I've been in big enough cities and around areas. I don't know. Let me ask you this question. Do you trust your gut often? So you have a choice to make. You're going to be staying somewhere. Do you trust your gut? If your gut's saying, oh, do you listen to it, or
we don't fight it? That's for sure. Yeah. I think the more that you interact with people, the more I don't want to be reductive, but you'll learn that there are certain personality archetypes people fit into, and I don't mean it with regard to any stereotypes that you might think of off the bat. It's this learned thing. There are some people that you meet and you think to yourself, like, that guy is just like this other person I've met. They share the same mannerisms. They seem to be motivated by the same things. And I'm pretty sure that I could trust them in these ways, but not these ways. with interacting with lots and lots of people, you'll start to learn people in a different way. And it's not necessarily that it's no kind of superpower, but you do develop a better intuition. I know at earlier times in my life, it felt like I didn't understand many of the motivations for other people, and I couldn't empathize with them. I couldn't get there. You hear a lot of people say, "I don't understand how someone could do something like that." But that really is because they just haven't talked to those people long enough. They haven't been around those people long enough, and in doing so, you do learn that there are people that you'd probably rather be hosted by than others, and
Sure.
and other people that might be really really fun. And like if you have this moment to experience with them, they'll be great, but you probably can't count on them for anything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. Um, so you've been on the road how many days now, or months?
I think it's 669.
Gosh, that's crazy. That's crazy. So there's folks that are watching this or going to be watching this. Um, they're entertaining, or they want to do something that's big in their life, and yours is a walk about the country and mine's a drive about the country. To me, it's a big thing for me, what I'm doing. It's big for you. What would you tell those folks? Because we're talking about there's going to be some hardships. You might have some physical things that happen from time to time. And well, what would be the message that you would tell them to motivate or inspire to keep going after, if it's important, whatever you're passionate about? Because the reason I'm asking you to elaborate on that is because I think so many today have it up here, what they want to do and what they think will make them happy or they'd like to achieve. And I use that word like because that's typically where it stays. It's on a shelf somewhere up here, and then you're like me, and 42 years later, it finally comes off the shelf. But to the younger folks, the younger generation, my daughter's 24. She's afraid for me being on this trip to some of the things you just talked about, the fear of this happening, crime, all of that stuff. What would you say or share to others that they need to hear so that you'd be willing to get past your fears and some of the faux obstacles that you think might be in your way? What would you say to that? What would you add?
Funny that you say that. I'm 24 as well, and I'm glad that we started this journey so early. So many people wait to start things that they think are going to be fulfilling or impact the world. One thing I like to point out is don't underestimate the impact that you as one person can have. And it might start small and it might always look small. You don't know the ripple that you're having. We can only hope to impact individuals and create a domino effect. It's hard to change the whole world all at once. How many people are going to see the whole world change because of their impact? But know that you're impacting everyone you talk to, for better or for worse.
I would say I think often we try to keep ourselves safe, comfortable, and that's because we imagine that living a long life is the thing to be prioritized, when really this walk that we've been on, if I die tomorrow, I know that I will have experienced more than I ever would have if I had not taken off on this journey. If I had worked for a standard job and I just continued to clock in regularly day after day, I would have never found the mindset and headspace that I do now. But more experience is contained within these last couple of years that we've been walking than the rest of my life ever consisted of. And that even includes the van life, right? It includes all of my adventures prior to that. It's because the walk is so densely packed with experience. It's so densely packed with interactions and sights and being subjected to the elements and overcoming all of these obstacles. And it truly feels like the adventure that people dream about and that they write stories of and that they make movies out of. And it is hard. It's very difficult, and I would never trade it for anything. It's a long life is nothing. Experience is everything. Time doesn't mean anything. Experience means all of it.
Yeah. And I'd say don't be afraid to do something different, maybe something that's never been done. Don't be afraid to do it and not have anyone backing you up. We started this with such little shape to our journey. We were just gonna see if we could do it, and it's turned into so much more. One little addition at a time. It evolves. It'll
Gosh,
always work out.
I love that. It's so true. If it's the same, I think I could basically just attach myself to what you just said and say, same.
Yep. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
But the key again is you can't wait till everything falls into place.
Mm-hmm.
It's never going to happen
Never.
that way. I have a tagline. I don't know if I shared it earlier, but it says, "Life will live you in the absence of you living life."
Yeah.
What I mean by that is there's these set expectations as we grow up. Many of us grow up. Well, you need to finish high school. You need to go to college. You got to get this degree. Go after the dream of owning your own house, having a family, and all. And nothing wrong with that in and of itself. But when that happens, I feel that we lose out. We're cementing ourselves to a location. We get this occasional time away from this job that we're using or having to hold to pay for everything as we go. And then we get a couple times a year where we get a little happiness over here, a little happiness over there. And I don't know, myself and many I speak to, they talk about that from a drudgery perspective. It's like, it becomes mundane, and you said a key word, experience. You can't get this sitting in front of a television. You can't get it watching a video like this. You have to be out and live in it,
Yeah.
So I'm in Maryland. So this goes to frustrating moments. Those moments in your journey where it's like, I have to do this, right? And it's just one of those things. It's a necessity. So I'm on top of Chesapeake Bay, way at the top of Maryland. And I wanted to go to Annapolis. I wanted to see the Naval Academy. Well, I had a choice. I could either drive between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, which is basically one huge city. There's really no separation of those two. Or I take the 8 hours drive all the way around to the other side, come in on the backside of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. Didn't make any sense to me. And I remember sitting at a rest stop, and I heard myself saying, I have to do this. I have to drive through there. And it's a little play on words, but it's changed my whole perspective of my journey from that point on for anything frustrating. Sitting there and I'm listening. Oh my gosh, you sound so negative. I have to do this. It was like it was a job.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what if I put the word gift in there instead? It was immediate. I get to do this. Mm-hmm. I get to drive between Baltimore and DC. I get to experience this. And what happened was not only did my mood change, but all of a sudden I became aware of all of my surroundings. Oh my gosh, I would have never seen that other way because I would have been white knuckling.
Yeah.
Look at that. And I was comfortable and I was relaxed. And I've used it. Nevada, hour and a half on black asphalt, middle of the desert, construction going on. We sat for an hour and a half in our vehicles. And I remember that, this is going to, I have to sit. And I said, no, I get to. And all of a sudden now I became aware of, oh my gosh, I can walk out into the desert. I can go take photographs of this. And it changed my whole perspective. Do you guys have anything similar that when you get into a spotlight? For me, just that simple play on words, like I said, it was enough to get me over any hurdle or any through frustration. I've been sick, so I'm feeling really good today, actually. But I get to go through this. I'm getting to go through this. Yeah, I don't really care for it, but I get to do it. It's going to make me stronger at the end of the day. And it's also going to help me develop, down the road for the next challenge that might come about. Do you guys have anything similar or any thing that's happened along those lines?
This is a big thing that we're talking to people about, actually. The thing that you're referring to is known as cognitive reframing. It's all about the way that you talk to yourself internally. And so, yeah, I mean, we're constantly working to reframe our inner narrative, and we try to get creative about it. I do a lot of that through my writing that I do on social media. But
And you have some beautiful writing, by the way. I've read not
Thank
all
you.
of it, but I've read a lot of it.
I appreciate that. But for us, it's anytime you find yourself complaining, you should be asking yourself, what are all the different ways that I could look at this? Because there's always a different way to look at it. And if you can't find a different way to look at it, you can still have the faith that there is a different way to look at it. Some that I really like to fall back on with regard to personal interactions, when you're talking to someone that you find irritating, you're often talking to yourself and you're saying, wow, this person's annoying. I wish that I didn't have to be here, etc. But you could instead say to yourself, wow, I'm easily annoyed. I should work on that. And so this obstacle turns into a means of personal growth. And there are a lot of different ways to make the obstacle your way forward. If you're under the hot beating sun and you're in 95 degrees for 2 weeks in Montana and you can't escape it, you have that opportunity to go through something that you've never gone through before so that you come out the other side, and basically very, very little will match up to that. You'll always be able to look back on that moment and go, yeah, but it's not quite what that was. So even in that moment, you can use that assurance, right? This is the hardest thing that I have to go through. Everything else is going to pale in comparison to it. So I'm thankful for this opportunity. It's
And how did you fit cognitive reframing?
Yeah, it's called cognitive reframing.
All right, I'm definitely gonna invest more time in reading about that, because yes, it's powerful.
Absolutely.
To the inner person, it is so powerful. It's helped me tremendously. I didn't know it by those words, but having get is how I see it.
Yeah.
I get to do this because not everybody does, but I get to. And at the end of the day, it makes you a better person, I think. And you have a better experience for what you're going through.
More pleasant to be around to others, surely too, if you have a better perspective.
Right.
Rub off on them.
Our thoughts, the thoughts that we have, that inner narrative, it impacts so much of our experience. People don't realize how far-reaching it really is, but your thoughts can literally dictate the way that you perceive things visually. And for anybody who doesn't think that that's true, it's easily ascertained when you fall in love with someone. If you grow to fall in love with someone, you'll find that they become more beautiful. And then if you fall out of love with that person and they become your ex, they can end up looking like one of the ugliest people you know.
Uglier than when you first saw them.
Yeah, and a lot of people they experience that phenomenon. Like, she is so much uglier than I remember. Yeah, our thoughts have such a tremendous impact on the experience that we go through in life. And if you look for the beauty in things, you can find far more beauty. And you can also know that that is the case because, for example, when I left Missouri when I was younger, I was fed up with it. I was like, I'm never going to live here. This place is so ugly. It's so milquetoast. Like, they don't have mountains and they don't have plains. They're just a big nothing burger. I went and I experienced lots of mountains and lots of desert and all of that. And I came back to Missouri years later and I was just enamored with it. I was like, this place is so beautiful. It's like the Little House on the Prairie. How did I miss this my whole life? And it's a large part of that has to do with the way that you're talking to yourself about it. You can look for the things there. And sometimes it's easiest to see those things when they're presented to you because you haven't been exposed to them in a long time. But Missouri didn't change so much as I changed.
You changed. And I bet you're probably experiencing some of this There's safety and anonymity. People are carrying stuff and these burdens around with them. Um, they're heavy. Son being murdered. Do I divorce? Do I not? Whatever it might be. And yet, to a complete stranger, they're sharing and they're willing to share it. That was a huge surprise to me. I did not anticipate or expect that. And I've heard over multiple times now has that played out. Are you guys experiencing some of the same?
Absolutely.
I think we experienced that with a lot of our hosts. I think
Even just people pulled over on the side of the road have opened up, like someone they love just died, or someone they care about just got diagnosed with cancer, or someone who was struggling to keep on living themselves.
I think we've seen maybe more of many people's truest colors than some of their friends and family do, because they feel like they have to be this person around others. They're expected to be a certain thing around their community, but when they're just in a room alone with us, especially being the people that we are prioritizing openness to all things, they have the ability to finally talk about some of those things. And I think this probably manifests more than anywhere else with the topic of religion. People are rarely as like confined to the doctrinal standards of their faith psychologically as we often might think they are, and we might like label this denomination or this religion as being very judgmental, but the adherents that live inside of them, they're still very, very human. And that's a lesson it's been important to me and Paige, especially with some of the things that we're doing now. We've created this series online. It's the Something Greater series, and it's a deep dive into the self and its relationship to something bigger than ourselves. And we did that with a lot of trepidation, but it's been doing pretty well. Nothing that is of that length ever does well in the algorithm, but people have received it very well.
It's an emotional thing out there sometimes, and you touch on it there with what you're doing. You know, yeah, I'd never start a conversation with religion or anything, because it has a tendency to go off course real quick with most folks. But just being open to being able to discuss anything. But it's the stories that that blows me away. That's it. It's my way of saying it in the simplest form, that I feel like I'm being blessed. That's exactly how I describe it. I said, I've been blessed today. I've been blessed by the people who served me at a McDonald's, coming out for delivering my meal to my vehicle and sharing their stories, to everything in between, and it makes me a better person. It gets me thinking. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I thought I had a challenging, difficult go at life and then I heard this, and at the end of the day, it just helps me, I think, just to be kinder, if that makes sense. A better version, you said it before, a better version of myself. I can be kind. I can extend my hand. I can extend a welcome. I can extend an invitation to others, and just hopefully have a positive impact on them. And it's all born from complete strangers. The people that you meet, that you host, you're a stranger to start with.
Yeah.
Are you like me, where you feel when you left, their family?
So many people we grow so close to. It's so hard to say goodbye so fast.
Yeah.
There's
It is,
some
and
that we've gotten to spend a little more time with. There's especially this, there's a husband and wife, and then her daughter and son-in-law that lived right across the street. It feels like they were our joint host, basically, in Alabama. Some of the best friends we've made on the whole walk. We took a 2-week vacation in the middle of our longest 11-month segment, where it was like pretty center in the middle. They feel like family. I started crying when we said goodbye, and I couldn't talk anymore, and it's so sad.
Some people you click with so immediately. I'll be happy just to single her out, and I'm sure that she would be happy if I singled her out. KJ, who hosted us up in Arkansas, some people you click with so hard, and just our conversation the whole night long, it was so deep and genuine, and it flowed so naturally. And I mean, I fear that they will end up, not feeling that we feel the way that we do about them. I think, given our position, because we're talking to so many people and we're hosted by so many people, that can function as an impediment to like establishing long-term relationships, because people think that they're just a number. But it almost feels sometimes like you can't tell them that they're not just a number when they really aren't, and they've worn a mark in your heart that you're going to carry with you for the rest of your life. Even if you can't remember what their face looks like, you remember the feeling, and you remember the night and what it meant to you.
So that brings me to my next, Facebook. So people say, I don't do Facebook or whatever. Yeah, most of them still have it. For me, it's an archive. So I don't forget a name. So I don't forget a face. It's my way of capturing everything from every day on my journey as I go about. Because I have goals at the end of this, and I'm going to ask you guys about yours. So when I'm all done with my portion of it, I'm going back into those archives because I'm going to write a book. I don't see myself as an author. I didn't see myself as a writer or anything. I'm finding out that I've got some of those skills. I'm not the greatest. I don't need to be. I write in my own style, and I'm doing it my way type of thing. But I want to do a book because I want to do speaking engagements and further motivate and inspire others to go out and do something, no matter what it is, whatever you're passionate about, whatever your aspiration goals are. Don't set them on the shelf to collect dust, right? So with that being said, you guys do you allow yourself to think, okay, what do we do when we hit the end of this 50 states or 48 or whatever? Do we have any thoughts along those same lines? Because I think, or I believe, think is the wrong word. I believe from the reading I've done on your posts and what you're putting, you have a lot of experiences that could be so beneficial to so many, whether it's inspiring or motivating or just lifting them, from times of their most difficult moments, So that being said, do you have any aspirations down the road of doing something that comes out in a book or in some other form? I just know that. Yeah. So what is? Yeah. Do you guys allow yourself to go there?
Limitedly, I would say we are not committing to anything after the walk, really, other than at some point socially isolating for some good chunk of time. We would like to homestead if we can get the money together for it, and try to do our best to live off grid and be like 80% self-sustaining, something like that.
Very, very back to roots, saw our own trees down, and have a crooked old-fashioned home.
Yeah.
Outhouse.
Yeah, if we can make it
legal.
happen.
We learned in Missouri, apparently it's not legal, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's got to have a septic system in Missouri. But ideally, I don't think that we'll ever stop talking to people about the most meaningful things. We'll probably continue to create content. I don't know if we'll do it as aggressively as we're doing it currently.
Very, very time consuming currently.
Yeah, it eats our whole day.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll ever write a book like other people would like us to write. There are other people who've walked across America and they've done that, and they can go read those books. Paige and I offer something else.
Yeah.
We offer an expertise in a different area. And so if we write a book, it'll be more so probably philosophical or loosely academic. And we might apply some of these lessons from the walk to that. But I want to talk to people not so much just about the stories, But how have those stories come to be in the first place, right? How do you make yourself into the kind of person that can situate themselves in the kind of circumstances that result in those stories? How do you navigate those circumstances without it erupting into something bad? Because having been hosted by all the people that we have, if we had a different way of going about conversation, not all of the nights would have turned out so pleasantly. There are plenty of people that, host you with the wrong intentions, not like truly nefarious, but like they want something from you. They want to get something out of you. And there are other people that are just difficult to deal with. And, it's the whole spectrum, right? We have a good time with nearly everybody. I mean, it really has been incredible.
We have good things to say about everybody. But, the degree of it all varies.
Well, don't stop your writing, because I, for one, I always feel fulfilled after I read it.
Thank you.
Whether some of it might go like, but that's all right, because I have all this time in my vehicle. I get to think about it, and then eventually it starts formulating. Oh, I kind of get where he's going with this now, or she's going with this now, and I find that encouraging. So don't ever stop that, because you're inspiring me by what you're doing, and it's another motivation and another encouragement for me. You think even driving with some more comforts than y'all have. There's days where it's like you need that lift. It's not perfect all the time. You can't go through life with a smile blazing all the time. You can change that to I get to have this meeting up, but don't ever change that about yourselves.
I will definitely continue to write.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you're young and that you have this, because I look forward into my 90s, seeing what you guys are doing in your 50s. Is it going to be something similar? Is it going to be just continuously expanding your horizons, your experiences? Who knows? Maybe Europe's in the in the plans down the road.
Never know. I don't imagine we'll sit still for too long, for sections of time, but never be completely traditional, probably.
We're completionists, though, so we got to complete the states before we leave the country.
No more commitments.
Yeah. And I've had folks, the same thing is they're hitting me with, "You're not doing all 50?"
We heard that so much. It was 48 for the longest time. We said 48.
So that's what I said, no, I'm sticking to my journey. I said, my journey was the lower 48. I've been to Hawaii. I said, I suppose I could go up to Alaska and do that. But I said, that's my vacation, when I finish it, type of thing. So I don't let others control my narrative. I can be shaped by it. Some of the places that I end up going is because of the people I meet, because I started this whole thing as a photographer. I'm a photographer. Mm-hmm. So it's my business. I was going to go find the hidden gems of the country. And within 2 days, it became not only a photography, it became a people journey. Mm-hmm. I told you at the beginning, I says, I have my first family of this trip. And, the town, I met them in Cuba, Missouri. Been to Cuba?
No, but I've...
Tiny town, maybe 500 people. Mm. But they support their baseball there. And I just happened to meet the guy in the stands, and you look back at some of those interactions, it's like, why did because he asked me when I stayed at their home when I traveled to Missouri, he said, there was 4 different bleachers, open spots in every one of them, but you chose mine. You chose the one I was at. And you also chose the level that I was at. And he said, to this day, I'm still wondering, why did he choose here? Why did you choose to engage with me? And I remember sitting, I was like 15 feet away from him. And I have a hard time being in a crowd like that. I'm an extrovert. I can't sit still too long. I have to talk with someone. You've probably noticed that here. And the Ray-Ban Meta glasses. And I just, excuse me, sir, have you ever heard of Ray-Ban Meta glasses? No, what's that? Well, here. And I gave me an excuse to get closer. And we started this conversation, hit it off really well. His name was Travis Cook. And the phone rings. They go, I better take this. It's the boss, you know. And next thing I know, here's his wife and his father-in-law coming up. And I remember looking down, are you the boss? Yeah, I'm the boss. You know, but from that short meeting, half hour of time spent with those, I've met the entire family. And they treat you like family. And like I tell them, I said, you'll always be my first family because you set the tone for how I'm going to interact with people for the rest of this journey. I'm not going to do any avoidance stuff. I'm going to go out of my comfort zone, you know, because there's many places I go to say, oh, that's where the get to comes. No, I get to go and entertain, or I get to go and be with, you know, type of thing. Do you guys have any special folks like that you would put that tag on and say, man, that person really made a difference in the journey that you're on?
Our first host.
Oh, our first host.
Iconic.
Yeah. Absolutely. Tim.
One of the best friends we've made on the walk. Absolutely. But he's a really standout guy.
From Missouri?
Kansas.
Okay.
We just crossed the border into Kansas.
Okay.
So we've walked through St. Joseph, and we came over the bridge, and he's in the next town, and he pulls
something like that. There's like two tiny towns right over there.
Tim. Well, it looks like the storage kicked us out of the video prematurely, but we really appreciate you coming out here to interview us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Believe me, you guys encourage me, and I get inspired just reading about your story and seeing what you guys have been able to accomplish.
Well,
we appreciate that.
We're inspired by you too. You know, I mean, especially to choose to do it at this point in your life. You know, you could have easily said, you know, I've lived this way for so long, and now, you know, I'm going to continue on this path. But you went out there and you did it, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, appreciate that. Appreciate your time as well. And folks, these are two of the nicest people you will ever meet in life. And when you get an opportunity and they're coming through your neck of the woods, please reach out to them and consider hosting them for an evening or two. You'll be glad you did.
Thanks, Mark.
That's very sweet.
Absolute pleasure.
Hands on the table. All right.